Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, November 10th, 2020, and instead of talking about the 2020 presidential election, we're actually going to look 4 years ahead. So following the 2020 year, we have a census, and I'm sure you've all seen the Take the Census. I'm sure you've had people come to your house if you weren't able to fill out the census online, or whatever it might be. The main goal of America is to get an accurate representation of the population in a number of states. Not only does this add to our population numbers and looking at population density, whatever it might be, it also determines how many electoral votes each state will get. So that's why it's very important that you fill out your census. That way your state gets a fair share of representation on the national level. So this is the expected 2024 electoral map following the census. Now, things can change, but they probably won't. These are estimations done by experts at a number of research areas, and while there are some inconsistencies in terms of a map, I am using the yapms.com 2024 projection map, and honestly, it matches up with 270 to win and a couple of other sources, so I'm going to roll with it. There are some clear areas across all of the maps, regardless if they agree on, singular states. For example, California in some maps is either poised to gain or lose electoral votes. It looks like it's going to end up staying the same. But this 2024 projection map has changed since I've made my video, I believe, my last 2024 video. And then the first time I ever made one on this channel, I believe, was 2018. So it definitely has changed since then. But we probably are seeing it wrap up just because we were getting so close to the end of this year. So what do you notice? I mean, a lot of the states remain the same. 303 electoral votes across the majority of the states actually end up staying the same. We don't see that many states changing in electoral votes, and we typically don't see as large of a shift in terms of electoral count. Generally, we see trends over time. If you were watching the 2008 election coverage, I'm sure many of you guys were, you will notice that, or if you remember, you will notice that Ohio had 20 electoral votes back then when it went to Obama. Pennsylvania had 21. So if you're looking at some of these areas around the Rust Belt, you'll notice they're in red. So actually, I don't think I've clarified what these colors mean. I'm sure you can tell from the top. Blue means that the state has gained an electoral vote or two or three, and then red means they've lost one or two. A lean characterization, which is that light red or light blue, that means the state has gained one electoral vote in comparison to where the previous electoral map stood, gained or lost. Likely, which is the slightly more blue or red, New York and Florida are in those situations. So that means that they have either gained or lost two electoral votes, and then Texas is the only state that I have in the safe characterization, which just means that this state has gained 3 electoral votes. So what do you notice? Well, first things first, the Rust Belt region seems to be dropping in terms of population. Before, Wisconsin was expected to lose an electoral vote, but it looks like it's going to hold on to their 10 electoral votes. But Michigan has lost one, and so has Pennsylvania and Ohio and Minnesota and Illinois and West Virginia. So around this region, when we're talking about like the white working class and we're talking about this area, the blue wall, as a lot of pundits put it, they're dropping in population. What is happening? Well, it's not so much that the whiter population in these areas are moving out. It's more so that the minority populations are moving down into the Sun Belt region. We are seeing an increase of population across almost the entire Sun Belt. I mean, we see states such as Colorado and Arizona and Texas, states that have been gaining in population, expected to gain in terms of their electoral presence. Alabama is the only state in the entire Sun Belt region that actually is poised to lose electoral votes. The only region of the country really is this northeastern section, and I know a lot of you guys are going to argue whether or not you would consider this northeast. Obviously not, but I'm saying if we were to cut it up in fours, you'd probably draw the line around the Mason-Dixon line, and you would say technically above it and moving over to the Rust Belt, the Midwest is what I would consider to be this entire region altogether. We're seeing a population decrease in New York, dropping from 29 electoral votes to 27. I believe it was 31 back in 2008. So that has dropped significantly. Rhode Island is reduced from 4 electoral votes down to 3. What was interesting about the electoral map is that Rhode Island, despite being the state with the smallest landmass, actually had more electoral votes than the state with the largest landmass. Now they're even. That was comparing Alaska and the state of Rhode Island. So I just think that's interesting. But Rhode Island loses an electoral vote. So Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, these states that are losing in terms of electoral presence, what does this actually mean for the overall electoral map? Well, in 2016, Donald Trump won all of the states in red except for Illinois, New York, and Minnesota, and Rhode Island. But when we're talking about the Midwestern region, the only parts that I'd point out are Minnesota and Illinois, which ended up going to Hillary Clinton. But Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, they all went to Donald Trump. So what does this mean for our electoral map? Well, let's go ahead and apply our 2016 election numbers. We're going to characterize all of the states Donald Trump won over Hillary Clinton, and you can just see that it actually didn't change much. I actually think that Donald Trump ended up ahead, and to be fair, the last time I did this map was, 309 electoral votes. It was, I think, a year ago, but I just wanted to point out that with the population shifts, even though this area doesn't exactly benefit Trump in terms of decreasing population, Texas definitely does, Arizona definitely does, North Carolina and Florida. So when Donald Trump won those states in 2016, sure, if we were working with the 2024 map, the Democrats may have been happy that the Rust Belt lost electoral presence, but Florida added 2, North Carolina added 1, Texas added 3, Arizona added 1. So it just added up to a point where the Democratic Party actually didn't benefit from this new electoral map. So 309 to 229, well, let's apply 2020. Arizona has been flipped. Nebraska's second has been flipped. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have been flipped. So this actually doesn't put Joe Biden at that good of a position, considering that he only flipped a state, the state of Arizona, which was the only state on here that has gained electoral votes that has flipped from red to blue. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, while sure, yes, it's good news for the Biden campaign that they flipped them back, they don't have as much of an electoral presence as they did on our current map. Now, the 2020 map is not using this one. There's a reason why I'm using the 2024 projection for it, but I just wanted to point out that it actually isn't too beneficial for Democrats. So looking in Georgia, this state doesn't really change. So at the end of the day, when Georgia goes blue and when it's projected, the final map will actually be not as helpful for the Democratic Party as you might think. But we've been seeing discussions as to whether or not the Democratic Party will actually focus on states such as Texas and North Carolina in the future. Now that Texas has more of an electoral weight, it's going to be a lot larger of a prize, really, for the Republican Party. 3 electoral votes really could make or break an election. We were talking about a potential 269-269 tie this time around. And if the Democratic Party ends up getting the Senate following the 2 Georgia seats, it is possible that they add the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico as states in the United States. We could end up with 52 states by 2022, which is not likely, really. I think Joe Manchin is going to say no, but it's always a possibility. It's not out of the question, I would say. And the Democrats would be very happy with that because it would add no more electoral votes with D.C. It already has 3. But in Puerto Rico, it would add, I believe, 7, according to current estimations. But we're getting a little bit off track here. The main purpose of this is just to show that, yes, with a new map, there are certain regions of the country that Donald Trump did well in 2016, and also won a few states in 2020, Ohio, West Virginia, Alabama. But these gain in electoral votes in Florida and North Carolina and Texas, these states are still Republican states. Donald Trump still won them in this election, and he's expected to win North Carolina, even though there are outstanding votes. I'd say, Trump is going to win. Florida actually won't be that close in future elections. I mean, unless the Democratic Party is able to completely, drop what they did wrong in 2020. I mean, 2016 worked very well for them in terms of the Hispanic vote in Florida. But Donald Trump did something different. Not only did he attack Joe Biden and brought up things that really resonated with this certain base, Joe Biden, despite a lot more turnout in certain counties, Miami-Dade County specifically, received less votes than Hillary Clinton. And Donald Trump gained 200,000 more than what he had in 2016. Had those 200,000 voted for Joe Biden would have won the state of Florida. So I just wanted to point that out. I just think that it's interesting. Florida probably won't be a swing state in future elections. It'll start off leaning Republican, could move either way, but right now the Republicans are at a clear advantage in Florida. Texas, I'd argue that with a growing population, I mean, we are seeing it rapidly grow. 3 electoral votes in terms of a gain is a lot. That is a lot. The state actually gained 4 from 2008 to 2012 between those 2 electoral maps, but it's still gaining at a pretty high rate. California is pretty much plateaued. That one is expected to stay the same. But Texas is not really comparable to California in terms of how partisan it is. California is plus 30 for Biden. Texas is plus 6 for Trump. It was plus 9 in 2016. And that's with the Democratic Party doing significantly worse amongst Latino voters in this state. So I just want to point out, we see electoral vote increases in certain states that the Democratic Party would really like to win in the future. but it doesn't look like they're going to do so. Now, that could just be me being pessimistic for the Democrats. I think Texas might be more in play than Florida in 2024. But again, this is a very early estimation, and I just think that the Democratic Party really dropped the ball in this election for these few states. I think that it's okay for them to admit that they didn't do as well as they could have in Texas or Arizona or Florida, because Arizona is less than a percentage point right now. And while Joe Biden will win the state, I mean, he already won the state, but will retain the state, it still will be a prime target for Republicans in 2022 in terms of the House elections, retaining their governorship, the Senate election up. So a lot of eyes on Arizona, a lot of eyes on Texas and Florida moving ahead. But general trends: decreasing population in this region of the country, increasing population in the Sunbelt region. But there's one outlier, the state of Montana, which is expected to gain one electoral vote. They're expected to have 2 congressional districts, one that is safe Republican and the other one that is tilt Republican, lean Republican. Obviously, it's a Republican state, so both districts will end up favoring the Republicans, but one district will probably favor the Democratic Party a little bit more than the other. But then again, they do have a Republican governor, and also, while they do have a history of split ticketing, it also is very difficult for them to elect Democrats statewide. I believe Steve Bullock lost this state by nearly double digits this time, so interesting election 2020, definitely. But final look, I think that both parties are going to equally benefit by a new 2024 electoral map. Had the election ended up similar to where it was in 2016, I'd say it benefited the Republican Party. But since the Democratic Party has gained ground, especially in the Sunbelt region, it is very possible in the future election in 2024, specifically, that the Democratic Party takes advantage of this increased population and actually does much better than they traditionally would have, because Texas now holds more weight, North Carolina now holds more weight, Florida now holds more weight. And if they're able to win those states, well, they hold combined, I believe, 6 more electoral votes than normal, which may not seem like a lot, but that definitely can make or break an election. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.